Okay, it is 6:30 p.m. This is Friday, July the 7th, and I am Professor Richard Wright, and I am going to give you some details to help you be successful in this criminal evidence class, one of my favorite classes, and J325. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Okay, and as you can see, there's information about who I am. It's on this page, Richard Wright. My phone number 630-660-8480. Let me go back and see if I'm recording, because I don't even know if I'm recording. I am recording. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So anyway, you can see the message that it says, feel free to call me, text me, email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. It means I'm available to you to help you anytime you need help. Feel free to reach out to me about any time you need to communicate with me. And then I want to remind you, in the additional course information, that you're required to conduct research for all written papers. And that means that the sole source of your papers cannot be the textbook. You will lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. All written assignments should be in APA format, except there's some special ones that are not APA formatted, but you'll know what those are. And that means citations in the body and references at the end. And then I provide for you some helpful resources to help you to be successful here. You merely click on the links for the writing guide, for the Library and Learning Center, for questions about library answers, a student success guide, and the peer versus tutor. And regarding tutor assistance, I provide also some links that can help you to connect to a tutor. Now, I remind you that a tutor is not just for a person who's having trouble, but even some of the students who are doing well can always use a tutor to help you sharpen your skills. And these links will lead you to how to do it online, phone, or in person. So it helps you, and we encourage you to use that. You'll see us talking about tutors more in the module. Then finally, on this page, on this side anyway, is the website for the lectures. And you would know that when you log in to it. All lectures will be at the same location. Open house course is taking place right now. And then live lectures will not be on Fridays. And the reason why the open house is Friday today is because we started our courses on Wednesday, and I didn't want to start with open houses right on Wednesday. So I did 3 yesterday, and I'm doing 2 today. And so our lectures will take place every Wednesday, every other Wednesday, 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., beginning next Wednesday. Weeks 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 lectures will be taking place, and we will make sure that they're archived. And then on the other side, we have a sheet that helps you, student resources. If you would click on this tab, this little link, it will lead you to this. And it says Q1 student support, but we have determined that it's not only good for students in Q1, but these are that are first quarter, but students who are in other quarters. Your advisors are always there. And then you got the guides at the Library and Learning Center, and then the student success guide that can help you. And then answers that you can get as far as library resources, are concerned. And then the writing guide. So you want to make sure that you have them. And okay. Okay, let's get back to sharing. So anyway, you can get on any of these links and you can get help as well. So I'm trying to do everything I can to make you a successful student, including also more details about the writing process and telling you about the writing process and using Grammarly. All of these steps will help you to do well. I've already referred to tutors. This is a place too where you can find more information concerning the writing process. Then, of course, I refer to the APA requirements guides at rasmussen.edu APA. This will lead you to the website to help you to get more assistance with APA. That seems to be the #1 problem that many of my students have by losing points. It oftentimes is a difference between an A and a B or a B and a C. So you want to make sure that you get that corrected. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. So now let's look at the assignments for this week. Fundamentals of Criminal Evidence. And you'll read Chapter 1 of your text, which is Practical Criminal Evidence, and Federal Rules of Evidence, Articles 6 and 10. 6 and 10. I provided you a copy of the Rules of Evidence with your email earlier that I sent to you after the welcome email. And then I also sent you a case that's involved, but we will get back into that a little later. That's the U.S. versus Gardner. But anyway, back to the basics of evidence. We're going to discuss that today a little bit as well. And then again, this is a reminder about your live lectures and a reminder for you to participate in the discussion assignment. Know your adversary. Know your adversary. And it's very interesting. You will be aware of the fact that we should be aware of the fact that our criminal justice system and the courts operate in an adversarial method. You have a defense attorney and you have a prosecutor, and each one has interests that are for their clients. The prosecutor's interest is the people, or are the people of the state or jurisdiction that they're representing. And then the defendant is the individual, such as people of the state of Illinois versus John Doe. John Doe would be the defendant and be represented by the defense attorney, and the people of the state of Illinois represented by the prosecutor, often referred to as the district attorney or the state's attorney. In the federal level, it's the U.S. attorney. So anyway, you're doing an initial post that's due tonight by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then starting next week, your initial post will be due on Tuesday at the same time. And it will remain that way for the next, for the rest of the quarter. And then a reply post be submitted by Saturday, including this Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Finally, you're going to complete the written assignment, the Federal Rules of Evidence, which you already have completed it, and I've graded it. It was very good. And remember that all written assignments are due by Sunday. If you get them earlier, that's great. And the requirements are found in Blackboard under the Lessons tab. And then there's a reminder about the open house. And then a reminder about my motto, adversity is a springboard to success. during the course of this quarter, I will share more details with you about what that really means on a personal level. So now let's take a look at the syllabus. And here we go. Gives my name, my phone number, 630-660-8480, which rings right here. Or you can text me right here. I have this with me at all times. And people send me messages all the time, and I respond back pretty fast. And then also, this is a reminder, my email address, which you'll see the number 2 behind, or you could send it richard.wright without the 2 at rasmussen.edu. Either way, I will get it. And then a reminder about the requirements that I referred to earlier on the course page about the requirement for research and the requirement for APA. Okay. So let's get down here. This is our textbook. It's a good textbook. I have looked at it. I taught this class before a few years back, and I was glad to have the opportunity to teach it again. And I love teaching evidence. It is fundamental, and you'll discover as I enjoy talking about this. Now, here are your requirements for this course: your grades, how to get the best, discussions. You want to maximize that at 220 points. How do you do that? You have every week, you have 10 points for each post, initial and reply post. Now, I know in a situation the way we're in here, reply post, how it's going to work, but I've already shared that with you, how that is going to work. So, but you still want to submit by Saturday your second post. And you've already submitted initial post for this week, but remember that next Tuesday is going to be the regular time, and every Tuesday after that. And that constitutes 35.5%, which is tied with the percentage for written assignments as well. So you'll have written assignments that are 200 points. Now, that doesn't include the course project, which is 200 points. And we'll go over that in a few minutes. And that constitutes 32.3, and that equals 100% or 620 points. You get 620, you're here. My goal with every student is to get you here. If we miss, let's miss here. Then if we, the next miss is here, here, or here. I don't want to go below this 80%. I don't want to go to 79%. And as a matter of fact, I always remind students, never ask me, how do I become a C student, or what does it take to get a C in my class? I will respectfully decline to answer that question for you, because that is not how I roll. That is not my goal. My idea is to produce students that are honor roll and dean's list, and I work diligently with you to make sure that you have all the resources, all the advice, all the assistance to help you to reach that level. And I'm excited when I see my students achieve that level for a number of reasons. That means that you and I are connected, and we're working together as a team. But it also means this to me, that you are going to be the cream of the crop when it comes to employment opportunities. As you should know, the job market is pretty tight, and that the people who are the top students are the ones who get the best jobs, get the good salaries that you guys want. Ultimately, you work your way to. I know all about that, having started in the mailroom of a big law firm and worked my way up various steps to finally going through college and then law school, Northwestern University, completing that. But it took a lot of work, and I can tell you that when I got ready to apply to Northwestern, they took me because I was in this area here. While working a full-time job, I will add to you, raising kids that are now grown adults. And the point of the matter is that so I understand that things happen. I understand people work. Of course, you have things that I did not have, like this technology, but we'll be talking about that in a few minutes. So anyway, the bottom line is that I harp. Grades, you know, I tell students, okay, grades are a measurement, but if you perform up to the satisfaction of myself, and I'm pretty fair when it comes to students, I believe in helping students to succeed. I succeeded because somebody or some people saw I was interested in succeeding, and they were there. And that has become contagious with me, and that's what I get a drive for doing. I love to have thumbs up for my students, okay? Finally, on this particular point, let's talk about some of the things that are important here. In this class, as well as in other classes, what I like about this college is that they focus on these items called transferable skills. And these are tools that are essential to be successful in your chosen profession. The first one is communication. Goes without saying, communication is essential and critical. Good communication, both written and oral. And I teach a class on written and oral communication in law enforcement. But I encourage students that, you know, as a lawyer, I certainly am a communicator. I could not have made it through law school in 20 years of practicing criminal defense and other areas without good communication skills. And so it is essential that you have this skill. And so be aware that our assignments that we give you, we are honing up, sharpening up your communication skills. Then your critical thinking. Oh boy, critical thinking goes without saying. At this level of class that you're taking, you are familiar with critical thinking. It is essential, it is a requirement, not just in school, but it is a requirement on the job. Critical thinkers are individuals who can operate independent, who can think out of the box, who are very creative, who are not afraid to challenge a position. Oh boy, that's what we did many times as a lawyer. I was a police officer too, as well, and I did some prosecution. So I've done all aspects of it, so I understand. And I can tell you this, that I didn't just accept on face value what something said. You know, I always took a look at it to determine whether or not it was something that was something that I could possibly have input to and change. That's how the law changes. It's because somebody operates using critical thinking to challenge the way that the law is and present what we use precedents or cases or statutes or things anyway to get the trier of fact or the constituents or whoever to the legislators to accept our position. But critical thinking is essential. We don't want you just copying material by research, pasting it, then giving us references and citations. We want to know what's happening in here, in this head here. We want you to be able to demonstrate a skill of using that well-established brain that you have and use that knowledge that you have gained to have impact on whatever your profession is. So that's critical thinking in a nutshell. Digital fluency, without saying, everything's digital now. This phone I showed you, my laptop here, you know, I can take my laptop and be anywhere and still do this because of the digital aspects of it. Our books are embedded in the course, and you have ebooks. This is a result of digital technology, but you have to be fluent in those kind of things. You have to learn how to use Word. You have to be able to use Excel. You have to be able to use other and various modules that, such as Blackboard, we teach on, as well as WebEx. We've had other systems. The fact of the matter is that you're going to discover that everything is technologically savvy, and that you must be in that same vein, technologically savvy, and you must be fluent in this and accept the fact. I tell you the truth, when I was in college and law school, we had these huge books we had to carry around. Now, about the heaviest things you have to carry around is a laptop, and some people just carry their iPad or Android pad, or even their cell phone. I have access to my textbook right here on my phone. I actually have an app on my phone that allows me to access my textbooks. I'm looking for it while I'm talking to you. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, yeah, here it is. It's a bookshelf. And and then here is my textbook, my criminal evidence textbook. Anyway, it's right here. It's right here. I haven't opened it up yet, but I have all of my class textbooks right here, and I carry them around in my pocket. Now, that's pretty classy. Back in the day when I had to carry it around, these big books. Anyway, that's digital fluency, and you have to be able to operate in that. And I can tell you this, I'm 67. We didn't have that. But I have learned that this is the way that the world's operating, and very important to be digitally fluent. Diversity. There are people that you're going to be exposed to both in school and in the real world, and where you live in terms of your employment and that are from various countries, backgrounds. They may not agree with you. They may not even do things the same way as you. But you have to learn to respect people for who they are. You have to be able to let people be who they decide they want to be. I may not agree with everything that you agree with, but that's okay. That doesn't make it a bad thing for us. In fact, it's actually a good thing when we reach the stage where there's one way of doing something and only one way. Of course, so there are some things that fit that point, but you know what I mean. That I have a view on politics, for example, and you might have a different view. That doesn't make either one of us bad people or either good people or right or wrong. The point of the matter is that diversity is important, and we stress that in our classes. In fact, I'm part of the Diversity Inclusion Council here at the college because the fact that I want to be able to have an impact on diversity. Teamwork. We work in teams. That's how we do things. No man is a lone ranger. No man is an island. I remember a song when I graduated from 8th grade. You have a team that you work in, and the team actually helps you. Did you know that individuals who participate in individual sports also have a team? They have their instructors. They have their coaches. They have their people who take care of their bodies. They advise them about what to eat, dietitians, and all these things. It's still a team. And so team is always going to be the method that you work in, and you're going to learn that that's the way. I remember when we were in law school, we had study groups, and we would parcel out the assignments, and people would each one would take their part, get theirs load, and if everybody carried their load, we were able to be successful as a team. And so you've heard the old phrase, and if you look at, there's no I in team, and you know it's very important that you understand that in school, and then translate that out into your profession, particularly in criminal justice. You will be working with people from all areas of careers, from prosecutors to defense attorneys to court reporters to parole officers, probation officers, forensic people, medical examiners, the whole nine, and many, many more. Ethics. Ethics. From the top of my voice, I yell, be ethical and not unethical. Ethics is something that you actually is a system, but you should apply ethical principles from the time you were a child. I was taught things that you don't do. Tell the truth. Don't steal. You know, those kinds of things will result in problems for you. I represented many people who didn't understand that, and I was a criminal defense lawyer. And so what I'm saying to you is that in law enforcement, particularly in criminal justice, ethics is everything. I'm aware right now that there are several Chicago police officers who were involved in a particular case, and they falsified the reports. How was it determined that they falsified the reports? Well, there was a subsequent video that they didn't realize would be released, and the videos came from their dash cams. And so as a result, it contradicted what they had in their reports. And it demonstrated that they were putting a fix in on the actions that they took. And now some of those guys resigned, but guess what? They're being prosecuted criminally. One guy was already being prosecuted, but it's because of the unethical practices. We have to learn to operate that way. And we also have a course that I'm happy to say that will be coming relating to ethics in criminal justice. They had a gen ed course, but we in criminal justice are happy that we now have a special course because there are some special issues that affect law enforcement or criminal justice. And anyway, we teach that to you. Professional responsibility, making sure that you abide by the rules of your organization or institution or your profession. Information literacy, you have to be able to find things. You have to be able to research. I love researching things, and I love finding out the changes. I am constantly looking at case law that changes the rules as they exist. And I particularly enjoy the fact now that we have technology. I was a law librarian, so I knew how to manually do research, but I learned later how to do it on Westlaw and on other systems that are based on technology. And I can tell you, I love it. I love it. So you have to be careful, though, about some information out there. We tell our students we have a vast, vast library of resources for you, and that you should look to those resources for your research papers, preparation for written assignments, projects, because there's some stuff out there in the, you might go through Google, you might go through one of the other, Yahoo or one of the other search engines, and it might lead you to some bad stuff that is not necessarily credible. For example, we highly recommend that you don't use Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a very unreliable source, and many of you have probably heard this before. Well, if you have never heard it, you're going to hear it from me, because it's not a credible source, because it's a word-based website. And you know that if something is word-based, that anybody can change it. And that makes it suspect from the beginning. And so those are the transferable skills that we focus on. Okay, we're approaching the halfway mark. We still got some more stuff I want to cover with you. Again, the academic integrity policy goes back to the ethics, and you want to make sure that you abide by this. Incidentally, this syllabus is a legal document. It is a contract between the school and you that tells you what you have to do well. So you can't just, because you pay tuition, expect to get a certain grade. You must earn it and work for it. But all of my students know that. Okay. So that's that. So now let's go to our calendar. Course calendar, which gives us our assignments for the week, which we started Wednesday. Our initial post, which the school said yesterday, but I gave my students until today. It was suggested that both of them be done on the same day, but I decided to go ahead and give this extra day because I know when you guys first start the next day, and that's probably why I had some open houses yesterday and didn't get real good attendance, because it was the day after we started. But that was all the more reason why I wanted to open houses this week. So your open house right now is taking place, and your reply post, as I already said earlier, is due on Saturday, and then your written assignment is due on Sunday. Then you start all over again on the 10th, and then all the way through as normal. Next week at the same time, on Wednesday, we will have the lectures, and then you'll discover as you go down the calendar that week 2, week 4, you will have the same thing. Then each week, you'll have all your details there. There are some reminders in there that I tell you to help you as well. They're not necessarily written assignments, but I'm trying to keep you up to speed. So let's look at our assignments once more. And this is your assignment regarding the federal rules of evidence. And imagine you've been called as a criminal evidence consultant to a high-profile case of the century. Charles Manson is one, Rodney King, O.J. Simpson, the Oklahoma City bombing, or one of your choosing. Write a 1- to 2-page report in which you speculate on how 1 or 2 rules from either Article 6 or Article 10 might help or challenge the profession. And then they give you the federal rules of evidence, but I also sent that to you as well, so you have it from both of us, okay? Just make sure that you keep that. Federal rules of evidence is going to become valuable. Very interesting federal rules of evidence. I loved evidence when I was in law school, and I'll explain why in a minute. Know your adversary, adversarial system, the pros and cons of this system, and what other alternatives you think may work better. And I've already expressed my position, and we'll be expressing some more today. And now let's go back and let's look at the lesson content itself. We're dealing with criminal evidence. Again, this gives you Chapter 1, and then you have Chapter 1 of the book, which you have already access to because it is an e-book, e-text. And then also the Federal Rules of Evidence tells you what sections that you're supposed to be dealing with. Back to the basics of evidence. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And then your written assignments, your discussion posts as well that we've already covered. So let's look at back to basics. Back to the basics. So what are the basics of criminal evidence? What is it? What is this all about? And it opens up with the statement that police must have a solid understanding of criminal evidence. It is important because as you'll hear instructions given to a trier of fact, particularly a jury by a judge, that says evidence is anything that comes from the stand. In other words, from the witnesses or from the documents that are introduced into evidence as exhibits, and those exhibits become evidence. And the evidence is there to present the position of whoever presented the evidence, the defense or the prosecution, to support their arguments or position, or to support the testimony that was presented as well. But it is important that police have a solid understanding of criminal evidence because guess what? Oftentimes, the first contact with evidence that ultimately ends up in trial is from the police. When you arrive at a scene, you begin from that point one to obtain evidence in the form of statements, in the form of physical evidence, such as maybe a weapon or some other item, anything depending on the kind of case it is, and pictures and all these kind of things. And police must have a solid understanding, and you're going to be covering this a little later, the integrity of the evidence, making sure that the evidence that is taken from the scene is considered credible by the time it gets to court. And so there's a process that we're going to talk about later on called the chain of custody. And the chain of custody pretty much describes the time that you discover evidence, how you take care of that evidence. Of course, you don't want to contaminate it. Like, for example, if it's a gun, you're not going to pick it up because your fingerprints and all of that would change on it. But there are ways that you do it. You take it, you generally put it in a bag or seal it and put your initials on it, date and time, and sometimes you even take the location of where you got it. Oftentimes there are pictures taken before you even remove any of that evidence. There's sometimes blood or something, some kind of liquid that's recovered at the scene, or some kind of other substance that's alleged sometimes to be a drug, and analyze, you discover that it's regular baking powder or powdered sugar or something. Anyway, the bottom line is that there are so many important rules that relate to evidence that we'll talk about. But that is kind of like a thumbnail sketch about why police need to have a clear understanding. Without the police doing a good job in all areas, the beat cop, the technicians, the detectives, the prosecution doesn't have a chance. Trust me, I know as a defense attorney and having been a prosecutor. I wasn't on the state level, I was on the municipal level when I was doing prosecution. So again, kind of what some of the things I've said, why is it important to master the details of criminal evidence? Because if you don't understand, it says the different types of evidence, I've already kind of alluded to that. There are the rules of evidence, which we're going to be discussing in this class. Now, the federal rules of evidence is a model of what the federal court uses. However, nearly every jurisdiction that I know of, particularly in Illinois, we have our state rules of evidence that are modeled right after that. And we follow the same kind of things along with dealing with hearsay and how unreliable hearsay is. However, there are some exceptions to the hearsay rule, which we'll be talking about a little later on. But the rules of evidence are very important that you understand them so that you will be able to provide credible evidence in a trial. Ways of legally collecting evidence, I kind of alluded to that. There are protections under the Fourth Amendment that involves search and seizure. The Fifth Amendment in terms of questioning people, you know, the Mirandizing and other things that are involved. The Sixth Amendment. People have a right to attorneys to be present and other things that are involved in the Sixth Amendment. And it says you will jeopardize that same evidence in a court of law if you don't understand these rules. And that's what I just said a few minutes ago. Okay. Since defendants are presumed innocent, there is a presumption of innocence. You know, even if you see a person on video do something wrong, there's still a presumption of innocence. Why is that? Well, because sometimes there are issues relating to the mental state of that person which excuse them from the responsibility of the crime. Or there are other extenuating factors that are not demonstrated in the video. But you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. I had a person one time ask me, how do you feel defending someone who's guilty? I said, I didn't do appeals. I represented people who were presumed innocent until either the judge or the jury found them guilty from that particular point. And that the burden of proof is on the prosecution. It is the prosecutor who brings the case who has the burden of proof and must prove that that individual committed that offense in the mind of the judge or the jury beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, that's kind of a term that sometimes people look at. Beyond a reasonable doubt, what does that mean? Well, it almost is self-descriptive. It means a reasonable person might have some ideas in their minds that, maybe there is a chance that this person didn't do this, or maybe there is a reason that justifies they did this, such as self-defense or some other issue, mistake or something. But anyway, the point of the matter is that that's what that pretty much means. And it only has to be one scintilla. That is why in criminal defense cases, the jury must convict the individual unanimously. If there is a one person who dissents, that person can hold the jury out. And then that person can cause a mistrial or either have what we call a hung jury. We just recently had a case that's highly publicized, as many of you know, the Bill Cosby case. That's what happened there, is that there were 12 jurors, and I think 2 or 3 decided that they weren't sure, and they weren't going to change their positions. So guess what? The Bill Cosby case was declared a mistrial. What happens then? The prosecution has 2 choices: to let it stand and let the individual go, or to prosecute again. Just came over the news yesterday that there has been determination that there will be a retrying of the Cosby case. But that's what goes with that. Who must gather credible evidence? Well, since defendants are presumed and the burden of proof is on the prosecution, the answer is true, absolutely. Since the defendant is presumed innocent until guilty, the prosecution must collect and preserve evidence. Precisely. Remember what I said? That goes with the police. I can tell you that going back to the O.J. case, one of the things that I recall, because I did extensive covering, I didn't go to California to cover it. Since it was on television, I covered the case for several radio stations, and I reported to those radio stations. But one of the things that stands out in terms of collecting and preserving evidence was Detective Van Adder, who discovered some shoes. Well, Detective Van Adder took those shoes from the scene and he put them in the trunk of his car, which was fine. But then he took the car home for the weekend and did not take them out until the following Monday. That left a question about the integrity of that item. If you're going to collect it, you need to, as expeditiously as possible, turn them over to your evidence people or wherever you store evidence, because you can create a a question. And if you follow the case, the defense attorneys made him look really bad on the stand, because in the academy or the rules in his position or job in his department were violated by doing that. So the responsibility of the prosecution was messed up because the detective didn't do his job correctly. So it must be preserved precisely and legally in order to prove or disapprove the facts of the case. All of the following can qualify as admissible evidence, except anything offered to prove or disprove a fact, someone's testimony, confession obtained from torture, physical objects. Well, there's a concept called the fruit of the poisonous tree. So C is it. C's confession obtained from torture is considered illegal and can't be admitted in court. Why? Because it's not the person given a free statement. They're not given in their free will. Admissible evidence is anything obtained legally without coercion that is offered to prove or disprove a fact. Evidence can be someone's testimony. I already said this: physical objects, writings, blood samples, fingerprints, and circumstances. Now we got DNA, which we did not have when I started, which has revolutionized the whole criminal justice system, and it is a good, I didn't say good, I should say excellent criminal investigation tool. And it has exonerated many individuals who, but for that, would have been found guilty. Same thing is applying now with cameras and other type of technological devices, from cell phones to body cams of the police officers to dash cams to cameras that are in the community on the light poles, from the stores or from businesses in the area, from people who have their own security systems, just a myriad of resources that can help in terms of, and become evidence, the tapes themselves. One purpose of criminal evidence is to rehabilitate a witness whose credibility has been weakened. And I know for a fact that that is true. There are things that do what we call refresh your recollection, or help you to come back, because people don't remember everything. I oftentimes used to tell my clients, I said, don't guess at stuff. And I said, and don't volunteer information. Answer the question that's asked and stop. People love to fall in love with their voice and be heard, but don't do that. That's a bad practice. You open up for whoever the other side is, whether it's the defense or the prosecution, have a field day with you. So I'm going to say true. True is correct, because criminal evidence can be used to restore confidence once a witness has been attacked. Oftentimes, police reports are used for police officers because the prosecution will say, do you remember blah, blah, blah? And they'll say, no, I don't. Is there anything that can refresh your recollection? Well, yes, I prepared a report contemporaneously with the thing. Okay, and then they'll have the defense attorney, the prosecution, will look at it, and then they'll ask if it's accepting the evidence, or yes, or may they present it to the witness, and then the document is given. And then it's read or looked at, and then, okay, now I know, I recall. Evidence is always offered as an item of proof. It can also be used to impeach. What does that mean, impeach? When we say impeach a witness, it means catch a person either in a lie, or either demonstrate that that person could not really have seen or observed what they did. One of the classic movies that I remember, it's a comedy, but it really is true and it works well. If you ever saw the movie My Cousin Vinny. And in the movie My Cousin Vinny, there's a little snippet in there in the courtroom where Joe Pesci, who plays the defense attorney for these two young men accused of murder, he presents proof that the individuals who said they saw these individuals or youth commit this offense, that they really didn't. For example, there was an elderly black female who she said, yes, those were the individuals. And so the attorney asked her, says, well, how far were you away? And she said the number of feet that she was away. So the young man, the attorney took the measuring tape and had it from the front and walked half the distance of what that person said that they were. And then the person looked, and that person were wearing glasses and still couldn't tell how many fingers that were being held up. Well, that made it obvious that person was impeached because that meant that their testimony was not credible anymore. Another one, which was hilarious in there, was a guy who said how long he observed the individuals. And then the attorney asked him what was he doing. He said he was making grits. And when he said he was making those grits, he said, how long were you making the grits? He said, about so many minutes. And so anyway, he came back and asked him, he says, do you use instant grits? And so the witness understands this, no self-respecting Southerner would use instant grits. In other words, saying, no, I was not. So anyway, he says, how come the rest of the grit-eating population of the world takes so many minutes? And it was like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so to finish the grits. So then he got comical, is this were the magic grits? And so basically, what he did was show that the guy didn't tell the truth about how long he said he observed it because he was cooking grits. Anyway, then he had a guy who had some screens that he was looking through, and he showed how much dirt was on the screen, and leaves were in the way between the view. The bottom line was all these witnesses were impeached. Now, again, remember what I said. They're either calling a lie or either misrepresentation, or at least it gives the trial fact the clear evidence. Now, I'm not saying that they perjured themselves, but in their own minds they thought. And then, so anyway, the bottom line is that that's what we mean to say impeaching a witness. Prosecutors offer evidence to prove a crime because, as I said earlier, the burden of proof is on the prosecution to prove that the crime was committed by the individual who is being charged. The attorneys, which I was for really many years, I enjoyed it, offered evidence to say this person was innocent, either an alibi or either, like I demonstrated a few minutes ago, impeaching the individual, or either the point blank is to provide enough evidence to show it was impossible. Or I've had self-defense cases where I had the testimony of the medical examiner to exonerate my client based on the cause of death of individuals. So that's what we do to establish innocence. That's why it's an adversarial system. Now, here's some little scenarios. What are the basics of criminal evidence? This will help you. So anyway, positively proves the fact in dispute. Direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, physical evidence, documentary evidence. Positively, direct evidence is it. It tells you right there, direct evidence. Demonstrates facts that speak for themselves, such as a body. Physical evidence demonstrates facts related to, but not the same as the facts that prove the case. This is what we call circumstantial. You heard that before. And then finally, agreements or contracts, such as credit card receipts that prove a fact about the evidence. This is what we call documentary evidence. Okay? So these are some ideas about the kinds of evidence and what is. So when you hear somebody say direct evidence, like for example, video, circumstantial or documentary, it could be It could be direct evidence, but it depends. Blood, that's physical evidence. Circumstantial evidence, well, you were in the area when this happened, and you were the only person in the area, and something happened, but we're not sure. Or you say you didn't do it, but all evidence points to you. That could be circumstantial. You can get convictions on any of these. Documentary evidence are things that are presented that will tend to prove or disprove a certain act. The rules of evidence only apply at the state level. Now, you know the answer to that already. You know that's false. Yes, I already told you that the rules of evidence that determine the admissibility of criminal evidence in both criminal and civil, but since we're dealing with criminal evidence, we're going to focus on the first, can apply at both state and federal levels. I shared that with you already. And that's it. So this is something that can help you to understand. And that's it for today. I've covered everything. This little introduction should be very valuable to help you. Oh, one last thing I do want to bring to your attention, and that is this. Go back to it. All right, the rubrics. And these are rubrics I sent that give the way I will be grading discussion posts, your class project. Then I gave you that case, Gardner versus U.S. Again, this is something that's going to be utilized in future weeks, but I presented in and then a copy of the Federal Rules of Evidence. I pretty much follow the requirements with written assignments that are not the class project along the same vein in terms of points. So let's take a look quickly, which you have already. This tells you in week 1 what you're supposed to be doing, choosing a high-profile case. And you're encouraged to use high-profile in week 1, but you can use any other that you want. In week 2, is to search the internet using the phrase famous criminal trials. You may want to post your initial ideas in the general course questions if you have any for me. This will help generate new avenues. And then here's the criteria for week 2. And this is how I'm going to grade you based on all of these. You get 5 points for satisfying each of these sections for a total of 30 points. Remember to utilize Grammarly there. And then week 5, same thing, you get 20 points. And it tells you 20 points for doing this, 5, 10, 15, and then there's 20. 5, 10, 15, and then 20. Well, it should be 5 in there too. And then 5 points for the APA, so that's a total of 25 points. And then in week 6, 35 points. Notice 5 points cost you right off the bat for not doing APA properly. Then week 7, and then we get to week 9, and then week 10, and then you turn in the final based on that and the rubric for the conclusion and final project. So I just wanted to let you see what that is. So remind you about that. So I don't think you could see that. I'm sorry, that was my fault. Let me go back. That was my fault. I didn't share it with you. Here we go. Now I'm going to share it with you. Sorry about that. You can now see it. The discussion the gardener. And so let me open it up again. And there you can see what I was referring to earlier that you could not see. And now you see it. And it tells you all the things that I was saying. All the way up every week down to week 10. And you have this, but I wanted to include it in this session as well. So that's about it. Okay, so I'm going to say good night to you. It's about 7:31, so we're right on time. So any questions, you know what to do. Feel free to reach out to me, and we can work this out. Okay, I'm going to say good night.